I speak today not because another African government has fallen, but because another African truth has been exposed. When bullets echoed through the streets of Bissau and soldiers seized power in Guinea-Bissau, the world rushed to call it a military coup. They used their headlines, their breaking news tickers, their dramatic language, but I call it something else. I call it a warning. A coup is only the smoke. We must look for the fire. And in Guinea-Bissau, that fire did not start with the soldiers who marched into government offices. It started long before the first gunshot, in back rooms where politicians traded loyalty for dollars, in secret meetings between traffickers and foreign agents, in a system that has treated Africa as a market to be controlled, not a continent to be respected. Today they say the military took power to stop foreign influence and drug networks. But I ask a simple question. Who armed those networks in the first place? Who built the corridors where cocaine moves from Latin America through African ports? Who funds the politicians who promise stability while selling their nation's dignity? What happened in Bissau is not an African crisis. It is a foreign strategy, a strategy that thrives when our institutions are weak, when our leaders are bought, and when our people are silent. So I will not be silent, because if one nation can be destabilized by outside interests, every nation is at risk. Africa must wake up, not tomorrow, not after another coup, today. When I say Africa must wake up, I am not speaking about emotion. I am speaking about strategy. We cannot push foreign influence out with anger alone. We must build systems that are stronger than corruption, stronger than drug routes, stronger than hidden money. Sovereignty is not a speech, it is a structure. Look at Guinea-Bissau today. The soldiers claimed they acted to stop foreign-backed networks, to defend the nation from corrupt alliances between politics and drug traffickers. But if they remove one leader and leave the system untouched, then what changes? If they jail individuals while leaving the economic pipeline open, then what victory is this? If cocaine still passes through Bissau's ports, the coup is nothing more than a change of managers. Africa has long been tricked into believing that removing one leader solves our problems. No. The true battlefield is not the palace seat, it is the invisible architecture behind it, the financing, the external agreements, the illegal markets, the institutions too weak to resist bribery. You cannot defend a nation if its borders are guarded by poverty and its leaders are chosen by foreign interests rather than its people. This is why I speak about sovereignty differently. Sovereignty is not nationalism, sovereignty is protection. The same way a house needs strong walls to keep out rain, a nation needs strong institutions to keep out foreign manipulation. And in West Africa, our institutions must be rebuilt with a clear mission: safeguard the nation from any external power that uses our weaknesses as opportunities. How do we do that? We must modernize border control, strengthen maritime surveillance, and track financial flows with digital transparency that no trafficker or foreign advisor can manipulate. We need independent electoral commissions that cannot be bought and investigative bodies that follow money, not politicians. We must build cooperation between African states that disrupts dark networks before they reach our shores, because Africa cannot be sovereign alone. Guinea-Bissau cannot protect itself if the traffickers simply shift their routes through another nation. Burkina Faso cannot secure its land if West Africa remains open to corruption disguised as cooperation. We must create continental defense not just of our land, but of our economies, our elections, our sovereignty. If we do not do this together, each nation will fall one by one, slowly, quietly, not by invasion, but by infiltration. That is the strategy I speak of. That is the real liberation Africa must fight for. If Africa wants true sovereignty, then we must look honestly at our regional institutions, ECOWAS, and the African Union, not with disrespect, but with clarity. For many years, these organizations were meant to protect African stability, but today they often defend the stability of foreign interests instead. When a coup happens anywhere in West Africa, ECOWAS reacts quickly, issuing condemnations, placing sanctions, threatening interventions. They speak loudly about protecting democracy, but how often do they speak with the same urgency about the source of instability, about the foreign control over our economies, the manipulation of our elections, the corruption powered by drug routes and offshore financing? ECOWAS is fast to punish soldiers, but silent when politicians sell the state to external powers. They punish military seizures of power, but ignore economic seizures of sovereignty. They condemn coups, but never condemn the invisible hands that make coups inevitable. Where is the warning when a nation becomes dependent on foreign loans with predatory conditions? Where is the outrage when a government is financed by traffickers who use African ports to move cocaine to Europe? Where is the pressure when external powers influence elections with money, with media, with hidden bargaining? So I ask a simple question. Can you protect democracy while protecting the system that corrupts it? The African Union is not innocent either. They speak of peace, but they often mistake silence for peace. Real peace must be built on justice justice against foreign economic domination, justice against external political puppeteering. Yet the AU rarely challenges these invisible forces. Why? Because many of those forces dress themselves in the language of diplomacy, investment, and cooperation. They poison African sovereignty through handshakes, not bullets. Let us be honest. If an African leader tries to resist foreign control, they are accused of authoritarianism. But if a leader obeys foreign interests, they are praised as pro-democratic reformers. This is the double standard that plagues our continent, a democracy defined by approval from outside, not legitimacy from inside. So what is ECOWAS defending when they condemn coups? Are they defending the people, or are they defending the political architecture built to serve foreign powers? Until ECOWAS and the AU learn to defend sovereignty before it collapses, they will forever respond to crises rather than preventing them. This is not a call to abolish these institutions. This is a call to transform them. Africa needs ECOWAS and the AU, but they must serve the continent, not the interests behind the curtain. Until they become shields against infiltration, they will remain loud voices with no force, reacting to symptoms while ignoring the disease. When soldiers seize power in Africa, the world reacts with alarm. They call us unstable, unpredictable, dangerous to ourselves. They say we are trapped in cycles of coups. But I ask a different question. Why do our militaries believe they are the last line of defense? What failure forces them to step into politics over and over again? The truth is simple. African militaries are being asked to protect nations that have no shields. They are soldiers in states with weak institutions, corrupt leadership, foreign-controlled economies, and security forces that are underfunded unless they serve international agendas. In such a system, the military becomes confused. They start believing they are the saviors of the nation. That is a dangerous belief. A military should not rule, a military should not govern, a military must protect. Yet how can they protect sovereignty if the real enemy does not carry guns but contracts? If the battle is not fought on borders but in banks and boardrooms? If the attackers are not armed militias but development partners, international consultants, and strategic investors who buy our leaders with soft voices and sharp conditions? The African military of the future must understand one truth. Sovereignty is not defended by coups, it is defended by capability. A capable army does not need to take power to save the nation. It prevents the nation from needing rescue. That means our militaries must evolve from guardians of territory into guardians of sovereignty itself. How? By becoming protectors of economic security, monitoring our ports, tracing money laundering, helping break the networks that move drugs and foreign bribes through our institutions.
Viewers, welcome to AMF4 TV. My name is Richard Che. I hope you are fine. Okay, we are talking about how African leaders has to be united by this an influencer leader, Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traore. There is a video on social media, especially on our handles, that we have to share it to you for you people to comment on it, on how statements he has been making all these days. We keep on updating you on this issue, but don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more of this video as well as similar videos like this. Let's listen to whatever he said and on social media to see, and then also don't forget to comment when you watch this video. Kindly also not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
By becoming partners to civilian intelligence, not rivals. By training to protect elections from external manipulation, not participate in them. By forming African defense alliances that share intelligence against foreign influence, not just against insurgents. Imagine a military in Guinea-Bissau that tracks drug routes instead of politicians. Imagine a military in Senegal that monitors foreign fishing contracts that rob its people of their future. Imagine a military in Ghana trained to secure digital infrastructure from outside control. Imagine soldiers who protect resources, ports, data, elections, not seats of power. African militaries must stop acting like referees and start acting like defenders of a system bigger than any leader. They must understand that a coup does not fix a corrupt nation. It only resets the timeline to the next collapse. We do not need armies that govern. We need armies that make governance sovereign. The future of African liberation is not a battlefield of power. It is a battlefield of protection, and the military must choose whether it wants to defend the people or replace them. When I speak of sovereignty, I am not only speaking to presidents, generals, or ministers. I am speaking to you, the young African on the continent and the African in the diaspora who carries this continent in your name, your face, your history. You are not observers of this struggle. You are the new defense line. For too long, African youth have been treated as a problem to be managed, not a power to be organized. You are called unemployed statistics, migration flows, social media noise. But I see something else. I see the largest reserve of courage and intelligence that Africa has ever had at one time. And I say clearly, if this generation remains passive, foreign control will win. If this generation stands up, foreign control will break. Look at how information moves today. When a coup happens in Guinea-Bissau, you do not wait for a newspaper. You see videos, live streams, witness accounts. You see contradictions between what officials say and what people experience. This is your strength. Truth can now move faster than propaganda, but only if you choose to use your voice with discipline and purpose. African youth must become investigators of their own reality. When you hear that a coup is done to stop drug networks, ask who controls those networks. When you are told that a leader is a danger to democracy, ask who financed his opponent. When a foreign power announces a loan, ask what they receive in return. Do not repost blindly. Do not become a tool for the same interests you say you reject. To the diaspora, I say this: you are not far. You are just on another front. You live in countries that often shape policies toward Africa. You work in banks, in universities, in tech companies, in media. You pay taxes that sometimes fund interventions, sanctions, and programs that limit African sovereignty. You cannot pretend to be disconnected. Your position is strategic. You can lobby. You can organize. You can expose hypocrisy when governments speak of democracy in Africa while supporting systems that keep us dependent. You can redirect your skills and money toward African-owned projects, African media, African technology, African institutions that are serious about sovereignty. Imagine what happens if African youth on the continent and in the diaspora see themselves as one force, one generation that refuses to let Africa be a training ground for foreign experiments, one generation that demands transparency, tracks money, protects elections with vigilance, exposes corrupt deals, and builds alternatives with its own hands. Power today is not only in weapons, it is in information, organization, finance, and technology. The youth and the diaspora hold all four. The only question is this: will you act like a scattered crowd or like a coordinated shield for Africa? That decision will decide whether Guinea-Bissau is just another headline or the point where a generation finally said, enough. Let us return to Guinea-Bissau because it is no longer just one more coup. It is a mirror showing us what happens when a nation becomes a passageway instead of a power, when its value is measured not by the dignity of its people, but by the usefulness of its geography to others. Guinea-Bissau is not a giant economy. It is not a military superpower. It does not control rare minerals, huge oil reserves, or global trade routes like the Red Sea or the Gulf of Guinea. Yet it sits at a place that the world quietly competes for, a strategic corridor between the Atlantic, West Africa, and Europe. And because of that position, it became something tragic, a marketplace for those who don't need to conquer African land, only to use it. For years, cocaine has traveled through Bissau's waters, but the drugs were not produced in Africa and were rarely consumed by Africans. They passed through Africa because foreign traffickers understood something we refuse to confront. A weak institution is a cheaper gate than a stable government. When your country cannot fund its own maritime patrols, someone else will. When your leaders cannot finance their own campaigns, someone else will. When your courts cannot investigate money